whatever. Saw you like 2 days ago. But yes, you are both here to learn, and so I shall hopefully be of service. So, thanks for coming. And this is the first podcast that I've, or not podcast, live stream I've done. So hopefully it works out and you guys like it. And so we're going to start with this. I'll start with the resin. So if you've ever done any casting with resin or you've used Smooth On, you're probably familiar with these things. I gotta turn down the volume on my monitor here. Good. So, part A, part B, this is Smoothcast 300, and it's a pretty good general purpose resin for most things. Unless you're doing something specialty, then you might want something else. But anyway, for general purpose, this is a pretty good way to go. It does cast, hang on. There we go. Mute myself so I'm not talking in my own ear. So it comes in a part A, part B. When it cures white. And so, for me, that's not a good color to work with. If the paint scratches off, you have pure white. Or if, it's even just hard to see the detail on pure white if you are even looking at your piece. So what I do, I get some black colorant from Smooth On as well because it's compatible with this stuff. I tried ink once, didn't work, don't bother. And then what I do is I just dump a couple good squirts of this stuff right into the part B. That way all of the pieces from this batch are all the same color. But be careful before you do that because then you're committed. And if you change your mind later on, you're pretty much screwed. So that's the colorant. To measure these, they say you can go 1-to-1 volume, or you can do, 10 parts A to 9 parts B by weight. So I use a scale from Walmart, and grams are the smallest unit that it has. So that's what I go with because my eyeball is, shall we say, maybe hairier than most, and just eyeballing the measurements they're not good for me. It goes wrong, so I don't bother. Batch size. So with resin, the smaller your batch size, the harder it is to get a good mix. And if you're off one way or the other, it's either going to be, I think it's either brittle, or if you have too much of the other, it's greasy. And I've done that before, and you cannot get paint to stick to it ever. You may as well just throw it away. So that's that. Get these out of the way. So we're going to start with this Woodland Scenics mold. This is the Facet Rock, whatever a facet rock might be. Either way, that's what it looks like. I have painted it blue with an enamel and as a mold release because dumping resin right into these things, yuck, you'll never get it out. So we're going to use blue enamel, actually, deep blue, I guess they call it, as a mold release because, as it turns out, enamel does not stick to rubber very well. In fact, this paint is just barely on here, and I don't know if this will show up on the camera, but I can scratch it off with my fingernail really easily. So yeah, so we're going to do that. Also, if you have questions as we're going through this, feel free to ask. My lovely assistant, Renee, is not on camera, and I'm pretty sure refuses to be, but she can read, and we'll be taking questions and asking them to me, so I don't have to watch two things at once. So, all right, so here we go. We're going to start with, and this is going to be, we're going to backfill it with expanding foam in the process, which is really cool. So, either way, so we have our stuff, and I just use these little plastic Solo cups from the grocery store, and they work really well. And this is probably about 80 grams worth of resin. We're not going to use it all because I just wanted to get over that small batch size problem I was telling you about. And so yeah, the smaller the batch, the harder it is to get an accurate measurement, or accurate enough to not have problems. So, and then we're just going to pour it in. Just kind of get it all over. We don't need all of it. It's going to cure right there in the... Okay, so we're just going to slush cast it. And what that means is while it's liquid enough, I'm going to, basically just do what you're seeing here. And the thing with resins is that the more of it you have in one place, the faster it's going to cure once it reaches that setting time. And in this case, you have about 3 minutes with the smooth cast 300. So so slush casting it like this, it keeps it moving, it keeps it pretty thin, and it helps it to set slowly. And what that does is it allows you to control it a little more because it's going to slowly thicken up, and that gives me time to get it into some of these higher areas that it's not necessarily going to flow on its own. And so we're going to do that for a few minutes.
Do we have any elevator music?
No, we don't have elevator music. I am sorry. I will endeavor to get some for next time.
Let me see what I can come up with.
Oh, okay. My lovely assistant is looking for elevator music.
I might be a little more upbeat than that.
Okay, so it is starting to thicken up a little bit. And so I'm going to reach over here and grab myself just a cheap glue brush, because when it starts to get thick enough to stay put, as it were, I'm going to want to try to get it into some of these higher areas.
Are you going to answer questions?
Yeah, I can answer questions.
How difficult is it to use a faster setting resin?
Well, honestly, this is about the fastest setting resin that I am aware of. It's only got a setting time of about 3 minutes. It's got a pot life of about 3 minutes, and a demold time of about 10 minutes. What was the question again? How difficult?
Is it to use faster setting resin?
Oh, how okay. It takes some getting used to, and it takes getting used to the process. And honestly, if you're going to start using resins, I would definitely get the trial size, which is that big. And because you're going to make mistakes, and if you get it and you don't like it, then you don't have 2 gallons of the stuff laying around that you're never going to use. And since that costs about $100 with shipping, and then you got another 15 into the pigment, If you get that, then yeah, I would probably just, if you're just going to experiment with it, I would definitely just get the trial size. Okay, so as you can see, maybe not yet, so the cup has already set, and that's because there's a lot of it sitting in one spot, and it's actually pretty warm. But it dried gray, or it cured gray, whereas the stuff in the mold is still black. It hasn't really started to set yet, and that's because we're keeping it pretty thin. So it will set, but it's just going to take a little bit longer. And it's actually starting to really, I mean, it's not going anywhere. It's getting pretty thick. What else? Oh, pressure pots. In this application, I wouldn't worry about it. Okay, so mixing resin, the chemical reaction creates bubbles, and you will get them if you're not using a pressure pot. So I don't have one, but I really haven't needed one either. So for me, it's a waste of money. But you know, if you're doing professional work and you know any little bubble anywhere is an issue, you know, I'd probably look into one. I think you can even buy them at like Harbor Freight or something for $75 or whatever. How's the sound, by the way? I just bought this microphone like 2 days ago. Okay, so this is starting to set. And it's starting to turn gray. And
Sound is good.
And it's going to take a few minutes yet, but you guys probably get the idea. So yeah, black pigment, gray curing, or white curing, turns gray. But that's okay, because that's a good base color to start with in my mind. Yeah, good. Okay, so now we're going to backfill this thing. And I like to do it. Okay, so this has set, but it's not cured, and it's still pretty soft. And so that's about when I like to put the foam in. Now this stuff is Foamit 30 or Foamit 3, and it's too much. It expands 18 times the mixed volume. Way too much. And so you can so unless you have a huge cavity to fill, get something else that, you know, is maybe 4 times expanding or something like that, because I have to mix super small batches of it in order for it to not cover the entire basement. So so yeah, either way, it's what I have. It's what I'm going to use. I won't be buying it again because it's just too much. Either way, so this stuff has like a 30-second working time or a 1-minute working time maybe. So you gotta be pretty quick about it. But again, you just mix it. Give it a good stir. If you've ever insulated your house, this is pretty much the same thing. It's not like that. What's the stuff you get at the hardware store? Like just the spray cans full of this stuff. Yeah, this stuff chemically reacts and it dries chemically, whereas the stuff at the hardware store or whatever, it dries on contact with air. And I found that the middle never really cures. And so it's, you know, sloppy and nasty and, you know, all that. So, again, we're not going to use it all. I don't need it all. But we do want to, like, you know, at least get it moved around a little bit. This will probably, well, it will come way above the edge of the mold. And so I'll probably have to use a knife and cut it away.
So you can use great stuff, is what someone is asking.
You can. Yeah, you can use great stuff. I don't like it. I even, it just didn't work for me because the middle of it never cured. And so it just, yeah, I have some, I don't know where they are now, but I made some dungeon wall pieces, and I thought I'd try filling them in with foam or with that great stuff, and it just seemed like it never, in the middle, it just never got hard. It was always, and when I would cut off the extra, it was gross, and and then it actually kind of hollowed itself out too, so that was weird. Okay, so here this is expanding. It's stiffened up quite a bit. It's going to keep going for a little while here. And while it does that, because actually that will take a little while, we can move on to everyone's favorite, her starts. So these are, I think, these are platinum cure silicone molds. They can take 400 degrees or something like that. So you could almost cast lead into these things, but I wouldn't recommend it. At least not more than once. Anyway, so resin, by its very nature, chemically reacts with silicone. I'm not a chemist, although Jubbs is, and he might be able to tell you what's going on there.
He wants to know what your shaker table.
Oh, my shaker table. Well, we're not there yet, and I'm not doing. I have a video on my shaker table. You should go watch it. So, actually, I have a video on the shaker table and a video on casting with Merlin's Magic, both on the channel. So, if you can't sleep and you want to, watch those. Anyway.
What was the chemical question again? Jobs.
Oh, it's Justin. Why does silicone react with resin? Because it does. You're welcome. Anyway.
Is this phone a friend?
Phone a friend? He could, yeah, I guess so.
No, you phone.
Can't call me, though. Anyways. Oh, so here's our little blob thingy. So, where was I with this? Oh, yes. Okay, so I ended up calling Smooth On one day and talked to...
Did he really?
He did. Anyway, so I was talking to Phil at Smooth On, and I was asking him about this chemical reaction thing. He said, okay, the shorter the reaction time, the longer your mold is going to last. I said, really? Why is that? He said, because it doesn't matter. He said, I know it's counterintuitive, but it doesn't matter how quickly it reacts as far as the harshness of the reaction. It's how long that chemical reaction is in contact with the mold. So, this stuff has, this resin we're using here has a demold time of 10 minutes. So if you're using something that has a demold time of an hour, you're only going to get 1/6 the use out of your mold. That's the way it works. Either way, so I guess we should get a chunk of something out of here. There. And if you've ever used Merlin's Magic or something like that, the surfactant you would use would be like soap and water. Okay. Well, resin is a totally different animal, and we are going to use baby powder as our surfactant, and it works fabulously. put them in a bag. If you ever made shake and bake chicken, it's pretty much the same thing. And comes out looking a little bit like that. But if you have a garbage can, just shake off the extra. And if you do a lot, wear a mask. Sugar-free Kool-Aid with just a hit of tequila. Yes. Why not? We're here to have fun, right? Okay. So we have our molds. They have their surfactant in them. What's that from?
Happy.
Oh. Happy. All right, so we'll get rid of all this stuff.
Okay, how much wear does resin cause your mold?
Very little at one time.
Is it going to ruin in 20 casts or more like 100?
Well, like I said, your mileage will vary depending on what kind of resin you're using and how long it has to sit in the mold before you can take it out. There are some resins out there with a 4-hour demold time, or longer for that matter. You're not going to get very many uses out of that. However, this is only 10 minutes. I have not ruined one yet, and I've done quite a bit. I would say I've done less than 100, but yeah, your mileage is really going to vary. If you forget it in here overnight, it might do something. But the most important thing is just to get a fast setting resin. If you get 100, some people have said they've gotten 150. If you once in a while, I have not tested it personally yet, but this universal mold release is silicone based, so same stuff, and that can replenish it or something. I don't know if that's true, but it makes sense. But you have to be careful with it. I mean, if you spray too much on over and over and over again, it starts to degrade the material. So, it depends. That's the short answer. Like anything, it depends. How many miles do I get out of my tires? I don't know. How much rubber do I leave at the stoplight? Not much, because I have a minivan, by the way. Anyway, so we got to mix up some more resin. What's that?
Especially when you're driving.
Are you calling me an old man driver? I think she is. Yes. I think that's exactly what just happened. Okay, so we have to mix up some more resin because we clearly used everything from before. And so we'll just do that real quick. I always start with A because it's 10 parts A to 9 parts B. So I pretty much stop somewhere on A, like 40 grams, and then I know, okay, 36 grams of B. Or in this case, 53, 52. Close enough. How many people are on? If you look on the phone, it'll tell you.
Handful, I don't know. Somebody said I was using mold release, but it made the resin extremely hard to paint, even after wash with soap and primer.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so the question was, okay, I used mold release, but yeah, that's because the mold release, doesn't go away when you take out your pieces, and it sticks to your stuff. And like the silicone and let's see, there's this stuff, and then they have an ease release 300 or something, and that's wax based. And both of them are ridiculously difficult to get rid of. In fact, I don't really know a very good way. Maybe the only thing I can think of off the top of my head, and I haven't tried it because I don't use it on these things, there hasn't been a need, is that purple cleaner stuff.
This thing?
Yeah, that thing over there. I think the label came off though.
Purple jug.
Oh yeah, so I don't know. Maybe this stuff, it's pretty good. I don't know if it'll take care of mold release, but might be worth a shot.
Okay, because Justin said, what cleaning chemical would you recommend for cleaning off the mold release?
Yeah, I don't.
And then he said he mentioned super clean.
Yeah, so I don't know. I haven't really played with it all that much because I don't use it.
Corey says simple green and super clean doesn't.
Okay, well there you go. But like I said, if I'm using this mold with this mold, which is rubber, the enamel pretty much serves that, the enamel serves that function. And then and this stuff here with the baby powder in it, I have not had any issues taking them apart, so it hasn't been a concern for me. All right, so okay, and I don't know if you guys can see this. The camera might be pointed a little high. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. So, like I said, you only got like 3 minutes with this stuff, and so the most I can do is probably like 2 molds, 3 if I'm really hustling, and I don't care about quality. But I do care about quality, so we're just gonna go slow. We're gonna do 2 molds. This is the turret mold, I think, and then the what is it? The rubble wall mold, rubble block mold. Both of which are pretty cool. And I may run out before I fill up this other one. That's okay.
What's the best way to pour to avoid bubbles?
This stuff, you can't avoid it unless you have a pressure pot. And I have found that if I have the baby powder properly distributed in the mold, I will get bubbles, but it won't matter because none of them are on the visible surface. They tend to float to the top. Occasionally, I'll get one that is in a bad spot, but it's really rare if I'm being careful about what I'm doing. Like pouring slowly, making sure the entire mold is coated, that kind of thing. And then I just use my stir stick, so popsicle stick, to scrape off the tops. I was doing that plexiglass method, or the glass method, whatever, but I discovered that these molds, are not perfectly flat like a piece of glass is, and so I would get thick pieces and thin pieces, and I didn't like it, so I just went to scraping, and I do all of that on top of a piece of plexiglass here. I think this is like a 3/16 piece of polycarbonate or something, and the extra resin just pops right off. At worst, you might have to get a chisel or something, or an old chisel, and maybe scrape off the big globs, but it's usually not too bad. And so I don't even spray that with mold release anymore because it just gets slimy, and I don't like that either. So, all right, so we can let that dry, and then we can go back to this thing. And where's my knife?
Your regular knife.
What's it? Yeah. So this is the knife I like to use because it's long. And depending on how careful you are, maybe I'll just cut this right in the mold. Well, I'm not careful enough. So either way, the blue enamel barely sticks to the rubber, and so this is going to peel right out of there, no problem. And you don't have any mold release slime to deal with, and you can paint right over that, no problem.
You put baby powder on your plexiglass bench?
No. The baby powder is just a surfactant inside the mold, and so after I just shake and bake it, after I shake the mold in the bag, yeah, there's going to be some that comes out, but I don't pay attention to it. So that's pretty cool. We have a blue rock, and that might make a pretty good obsidian little cliffside thing after it's all painted up. So, and then we can take our knife, start getting rid of all this flashing.
What mold is that again?
This is from Woodland Scenics, the Facet Rock mold, part number C1244. And then we can just start, and hopefully not cut myself in the process. Because that hurts. And, who needs that kind of negativity in my life?
Your wife wouldn't appreciate it. How do you like the quality of their mold?
Woodland Scenics?
I'm assuming.
Oh, they're great. It's just the bubbles popping.
Okay.
Because we're handling it and stuff.
How do you want to invest?
Well, again, that depends. If you're going to buy it and not use it, it's not worth the investment. But if you, a lot of guys make rock faces out of styrofoam. They cut it with a knife or their foam cutter or whatever. And, that's totally fine. I've done it. I have a project I'm doing that on right now. But sometimes it's nice to have something a little more realistic. And so these, I think, are really good. And it's what they do. They make scenery things. And, yeah, I got my first one. I think this one actually was my first one. There's a little model train store downtown, and it was on the shelf used for like 50 cents. So I picked it up, loved it. Probably find something similar on eBay if you wanted to. Maybe not. I think I got pretty lucky with that one. But no, I like them. And the nice thing about the plastic, because a lot of guys, they'll use plaster, and I have lots of these made out of plaster, but The resin you can heat up with a hair dryer or something, and you can flex it and bend it, or if you have just a knife, you can, you know, if you want a certain angle, you can cut just that line with the knife and shape it just the way you want to maybe the piece going next to it. Something like that makes it really easy. You know, and that's actually what I'll be doing with this piece. Have another project I'm working on, and this is going to be a dice tower that is part of the first guild build that I'm putting together. So this fall, hoping to get the tabletop spot guild launched, and this is going to be part of a larger project, and it's going to be a dice tower, and I'm going to have these, you know, on here, I can cut them up and bend them and face it and have a pretty neat looking, structure like that. So that'll be coming up. And so, how are these guys doing? Okay, that's pretty solid. I think we can take it out of the mold. Yuck, a little bit of slime residue. Oh, and by the way, this is all pretty messy. So if you just remember 2x2 hands of blue, you will have clean hands. Or black, as the case may be. And so, after about 10 minutes, you will have a bunch of these little pieces.
Firefly?
Yes, that was Firefly. And let's see, let's get, let's grab this guy right here. So, oh, you know what? That's not done, and I am taking them out too early. And you can tell you took it out too early because this deformed, and actually I can still bend it. Still bendy, and so I can deform that with my finger. So I guess that needs a few more minutes yet. It was pretty hard on top, but I can press my fingernail into it yet. But I think that is all I've got for tonight. Unless someone has another question or whatever, I think I might just shut it down in a few minutes here. And if anyone has a request about what they might want for next week, I'm totally willing to listen to that too.
We'll take call-in requests later this week. Justin.
Mm-hmm.
Corey said, what was the stuff you used at the start putting in the wooden scenic mold, the blue stuff?
Oh, that was gloss enamel. You don't need to use gloss, but I used it. And, Rust-Oleum from the hardware store. That's all it is. And I actually let it dry overnight to see how it would do. And I still ended up with some of it on my hand. So it takes a long time to cure. But it was sitting in the mold overnight, drying and curing, and it came right out. There's not even a speck of it left. And then you also, the really nice thing about it is you don't have to deal with the stupid mold release getting, because you can't paint over that very well. So, anyone staring down a hurricane tonight?
What was the name of the stuff you backfilled with?
This is called Foamit. Foamit. That's the part B. But they have a whole line of expanding foams. I wouldn't recommend that one unless you have a giant space to fill. I think this expands to 18 times its original volume. Way too much. So here's the cup. Let's see. Yeah. Here's the cup that I emptied. It filled right up again. So this stuff is, I probably wouldn't get it again. I'd probably go with something that's more like 4 times, just so I can avoid getting a bad mix and having a lot of waste because I have to mix too much to get the right measurements.
Corey said no already got the minivan from Harvey. 2 in front, 5 in back.
Oh, must be in Florida. Yep, in the minivan, on his way.
Get out of town.
Yep, that's what I would do. Up here, the worst we have to deal with is 40 below at night, which, by the way, is damn cold.
It's booger season.
Booger freezing. Yes, booger freezing, among other things. Whoops.
That's not quite what that means, but we'll go with it.
So yeah, I accidentally just broke out a chunk, but the plastic itself is it's cured, a little bit flexible yet, and it should be this thin. I mean, it's only maybe a 1/16 of an inch thick, at its thickest. So, but it's really lightweight. You can throw it around. It's not gonna break. Shape it however you want. Great stuff. Not great stuff. Foam it. And that's all I got. So I'm gonna clean up unless anyone has something else. But you can also just send me a message, and I will certainly get back to you. And if there's something you want to see in a future, let me know, and I can certainly entertain that as well. So, what are you playing over there? Stop it. It's distracting. Thank you. Either way, thanks for coming. Hope to see you next time. This is hopefully going to turn into a weekly thing. So, although it would probably be on Wednesdays or Thursdays.
Wednesdays on that.
Oh, so Thursdays it is. So, thanks. Have a good night.
I don't know where your buttons are.
Yes, you do.